Okay, have you started? So I'm going to sort of explain how Asian parenting works. I mean, I'm personally Asian, so I kind of know some of the things, though some things are just so brutal that I do know of Asian parents who are opting out of those sort of things. Here's a fun fact. In Asian culture, it's very common to beat children a little, not severely. The severity these days is somewhat low. It's not that severe as the countries have sort of started understanding that they shouldn't be so harsh with their children. Some knowledge about psychology is getting to these people, though these topics are much more stigmatized in these countries than other countries. Like your own personal being is secondary to what society expects from you and the people around you. And I don't know why I didn't know this, but usually it's seen as related to Confucian culture for China and the eastern part of part of Asia. There, it's usually expected for parents to not necessarily teach by example, but simply expect to be cared for by their children, and they also expect their children to listen to them. And this is because of Confucian values. In Asia, it's believed that if children and subordinates follow the leaders, and if social harmony is met, then everything will be peaceful. If children obey their parents, that family relationship will be good. If subordinates listen to the leader, then that whole subordinate leader relationship will be good. It will lead to peace. That is the belief. It will
Isn't
lead
it
to
true?
harmony. It's true in some cases. Like if I listen to my mother and I decide to listen, then obviously I'm going to get things done faster, but that also leaves me out of the picture. I simply get subjected to, and I get to say nothing to it. If I make a mistake, if my mother does something wrong in regard to it, she could do anything. This is the problem.
But they can
There's
make
no
mistakes.
restraints involved. Here's a fun fact. A cause of narcissism, as far as I've heard, is, well, being harsh with children. A common question that a child or a adult who is suspected of having narcissism would be asked by a psychologist. The psychologist would mainly ask them a simple question. They'd ask about a simple mistake, like maybe you spilled a glass of water, maybe you dropped some food by accident, maybe
Yes.
you got into some form of problematic situation on a small scale, like
Yeah.
accidentally dropping food
Yes.
or tipping over a pot. And this will lead to some problems, If the problem occurred, then the narcissist would say their parents were very upset. And on the other hand, people who are less narcissistic would rather say that they don't expect much of any hardship. Like they do expect to be reprimanded when they do something wrong, but they don't expect too much severity. And you know what Asian culture does? It's actually very severe. And I don't believe that Asian culture outright produces children who are more, let's say, narcissistic, but it's a pretty ironic thought.
Do you think Asian culture and South Asian culture is same?
We're South Asians, and there's no
Yeah.
South Asia and East Asia both make up Asia. Okay, so you sort of made a mistake. You said Asia. You asked me if Asia and South Asia were the same, and yes, they are the same because South Asia is a part of Asia.
Yeah, of course.
The other part of Asia is
I think South Asian
East Asia. South
situation
Asia
is
a little bit
most
different. South
complicated.
Asia tends to treat its children a little bit. I mean, I haven't ever heard of any Confucian Valley related things, but basically Asia, it's usually a collectivist society, and that actually does apply to our country,
Yeah.
and it does apply to our country and like the south part of Asia, but it's also mainly affected by the poverty experienced by the people here. Also, the Chinese people, and the people living in East Asia, they also experience.
Same type of experience.
No, they don't experience poverty as much as
Yeah.
South Asia. More people are poor here than in most other countries, except like African countries, I think. Poverty is somewhat high here, and social expectations are also high in these kinds of in this sort of society, especially the South. But the East, on the other hand, social pressure is there, but also it's usually influenced by Confucian values, and I already mentioned that. And the
Subcontinent.
subcontinent, yeah, I'm referring to, the south part of Asia is more affected by poverty, and the eastern part is more affected by just Confucian values. Their values are somewhat different.
Can we talk another issue?
Yeah, I'm going to actually go in depth into the sort of actual parenting involved. I already explained the cultural stuff that actually leads to this kind of stuff, why it's seen as normal. So obviously, China, China and
Japan.
Vietnam and those countries have gone through sort of wars that other countries like European countries or Western countries have not experienced. So because of that, they're more prone to see just beating a child as not as big of a deal. They see it as simple. And actually, sometimes our teachers tell us, sometimes teachers mention this, they don't make us do this. This has only happened in our school once. There's something called kneel down. And it's actually a Vietnamese torture method, actually. It is actually a Vietnamese torture method. You kneel down on the ground. And usually at school we have to do it on benches.
Isn't it
We don't do it
humiliating
often.
for a child?
Yeah, it's very humiliating. And actually this kind of over-humiliation probably leads to some children becoming narcissistic. The thought of narcissism really pops up in my head. But I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not commenting too much on that. But yeah, like it's not great. But when it came to Vietnamese torture, obviously you'd have to do it on rice or harder things like peas. I don't know why peas. I mean, the peas would get squashed. That sounds disgusting. I've obviously never done it, never experienced it. And actually, the countries in Asia are somewhat improving. Though beating a child is still seen as completely normal, parents are very likely to justify it under the guise of they won't listen to me otherwise, or they will not be disciplined if they are not beaten. It doesn't require harsh discipline to be disciplined. To be disciplined, you actually just need a few small things. And actually, I know in Asia, poking someone with a needle can also happen. Like, this actually happened to my cousin, Rocky. So Rocky would go to her tuition, and in her tuition, I don't know if she ever got punished with this. She's a good student, so she wouldn't get punished with this. She's actually I feel like she's under a lot of pressure to do well, since she never really gets low marks, and she's always spending a lot of time studying. My other cousin, Mohita, who's older than my youngest cousin, thinks that it's actually too much. My oldest cousin, Mohita, has always been second place. So she's always got a good sort of amount of marks. I mean, being second place isn't like a non-achievement. She's not someone who's not studying. And she spent some time not studying. And I mean, whenever she was with me visiting us, she didn't study usually in that time. But my cousin, even when she comes over to my house, to like my house, she comes up to the top part of our house a little bit more. She doesn't stay downstairs with our grandparents as much. Our mother doesn't want her to be there. I don't know why. But whenever they come up to the roof or come up, they she's still studying. She's still under pressure. Or she's taking care of her younger sister. That's a lot of pressure to be under. So yeah, even though her parents are pressuring and her tuition would poke students with needles, poke their lips with needles, her parents were still opposed to this. Even though they're willing to allow Rocky to be stressed out, they were still opposed to this kind of physical abuse.
What is the condition of you and your younger brother?
My younger brother, I think my mother is being a bit extreme with her. I think she should just cut his computer time and that will be good enough. That's all that needs to be done. Beating him does not change him, so just change his addicted mind. Addiction cannot be fixed by shame. I just see you two always shaming us for being addicted to something instead of doing anything about it. What you should do is, I think it's a bit extreme to do this, but you should just turn the computer off, use a password. I think I agree with Mother. You should just use a password. And before you say anything, let me explain this a little bit more. Addiction, sometimes it's a bit too much for a child to handle. I mean, if he was alone and he wasn't doing anything, it would make things difficult. But if he is spending his entire time unsupervised and using the computer, he's also just spending his time doing things and watching things completely unsupervised. The internet is not a safe place either, actually. You can see things that are absolutely dangerous. And he ends up playing games that are not suitable for his age, actually. I don't think that's a good thing. I mean, I've watched some things that are not suitable for my age either, back when I watched them. Anime is not exactly considered suitable for the age that I started watching it at, but I personally don't have a huge problem with it. So the kind of anime I watched was pretty horrendous. And I don't really watch anime that much anymore. I occasionally watch a few types of anime, like Spy X Family. It's actually called Spy Family, but I can't pronounce it that way. I just don't. And the main thing is that Asian parents, this problem is going to take some time to actually be changed. I mean, in Western countries, it's okay to pinch your ears. That's seen as okay. Pinching one's ear or anything is seen as okay. Pulling one's hair is also seen as okay by some people. Like, why would you think pulling somebody's hair is okay? I've actually seen my aunt doing this, which is not great. But it's actually seen as completely normal in our culture, even though it's actually illegal. And most people see it as completely accepted. Some parents also like it when the teachers hit the students a bit more, because they think the students will study harder if they're well disciplined. Also, Asia tends to be much more study focused and less freedom focused. That makes sense.
Then what should we do?
Well, it's going to take a few years of time, and as the circumstances and the lifestyle around us changes, we should slowly change via government and non-government organizations, for the most part. There's going to be some level of allowing for, what did I say, allowing? It's going to be somewhat okay to beat the kids. And since it is seen as okay culturally, the kids don't mind as much, but it is also pressuring for children. And this is why, when it comes to children, you should be careful in how you treat them. Shouldn't be too harsh, shouldn't be incapable of punishing them. When they need punishment, you should punish them. but not necessarily harshly. You can punish them, but there
How
should be
can
limits to
we-
how you do it.
How can
Well, like
we
if a child is not
punish
willing
our
to,
child?
like, you could reward them for certain behaviors. Technically, though, reward alone will not help. You should first of all try to actually teach by example. If a parent is smoking, why shouldn't the child? The child obviously isn't going to smoke. They don't have the urge to do that. But I know what I said.
You're accusing me.
No. But apparently the 10th grade students in my class do smoke. They vape in the toilets.
Is it really?
Yeah, they vape in the bathroom. It's disgusting.
Oh,
That was like in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade back then. I was in the 10th grade back at that point. My group is relatively tamed in comparison, but I'm not sure how we ended up with such horrible students in 10th grade. Students who are literally vaping in the bathroom. That was strange.